Okay. Excuse me. Get my throat cleared out for a little bit. Okay, so hello everybody. Happy Sunday. Good to see we are all well and doing nice. I'm sorry, my intros have not been especially good at the moment. So for those of you who don't know what's going on, we're doing something a little interesting today. So first things first. Hello, my name's Jared. Jared Poplar, WildSnivy Poplar, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to do a bit of an experiment, and an experiment involved me doing a little bit of a Sunday night stream, a little bit of something chill, relaxing for Sunday night, and the idea was that well, for those of you who aren't in the loop as to what I do, I am a differential equations TA. So what I thought might be a decent idea, I'm not sure if it's a good idea, and I have absolutely no idea that this is going to work, but something fun I thought we could try doing, and that I actually pitched in my recitations, was, what if we tried to combine a couple of things? We could do a game stream for one half, and then in the meantime, you could also do a little bit of prep work for the differentialing of equations and all the fun stuff that will happen with that coming up tomorrow night, actually, as a matter of fact. 7:15, I believe, is the kickoff time, yes. So that's what we're going to be doing. This will be a part game stream and hopefully something informative. So if you are here from one of my recitations, welcome. Do enjoy the show. If you got any questions, as always, you can just type them in that way. That way, yeah. That's where the chat window is on Twitch. Yeah, there we go. So you can type them in over there, and I will see them up there, and we will just talk about stuff. If you got any lingering questions, anything you want to talk about on previous exams, or anything like that, this exam is about you guys. Or let me try that again. Well, the exam is absolutely 100% about you guys. The stream, however, is about you guys. I will run at whatever pace you guys see fit. So do let me know if there's anything you would like me to see, and we will be sure to incorporate that at some point during the stream. So, what's happening here? Well, I should at least introduce the game we're going to be playing here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Eternal. And Eternal is a card-based CCG, similar in vein to something like Hearthstone, but it plays a bit more like Magic the Gathering. A little bit of backstory behind this. This is done by Direwolf Entertainment, and one of the devs for this is Luis Scott Vargas. And if you don't recognize that name, it's perfectly fine, but if you do recognize that name, you would know that he is a very prominent Magic player, and he actually does a good chunk of work on this. The offices are in Denver, so you can definitely drive down there at some point and say hi to them if you're in the Denver area, kind of like what I am. However, this is kind of his game, and it plays like a nice, solid mix in between Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering, and it is really, really, really neat. I happen to enjoy it a lot. So I thought that this would be a pretty good warm-up and a fun little spot of background noise for this stream. Thank you all again for tuning in. So the plan is this. I'll just be chilling out here, playing a few rounds of Eternal, and then I'll be sure to take a break every now and again to pull up. I got a good old archive of exams over here on my second monitor, and I'll be sure to run through a few practice problems and make sure that everything is neat, tidy, and squared away for our exam that is going to be coming up. And yes, I'm aware that is a very untantalizing prospect to a good chunk of the viewers out there, but don't worry. Worry not. We're here to help. So let's talk about the game itself. What are we doing here? Well, it works something like this. In Eternal, I thought I already said yes to this. Maybe it just didn't save. All right, there we go. Alright, so in Eternal, the idea is this. You have a bunch of creatures and a bunch of spells and a bunch of cards that cost varying amounts of resources. You can see the number in the, well, it's actually, yeah, here we go. This number in the top left here tells you how much open power you need in order to play a specific card. And then you'll see a set of symbols up at the top here, and that tells you the influence you need in order to play that particular card. If I see one green symbol here, that tells me I need a Justice influence in order to play that particular card. You gain influence by playing particular power cards. Obviously, Justice sigils give you Justice influence. Shadow sigils give you Shadow influence. There are a couple power cards here that give you both. These two here turn into spells once you reach 5 maximum power. And if I want to play something like Tavred, well, that tells me that I need 2 Justice and 2 Shadow influence available in order to play him. So it's interesting. You do have to design your deck around some combination of colors. Often it's not too wise to do all of them at once because it often ends badly. You might end up drawing the wrong types of powers for the wrong types of creatures, and everything can just go downhill. But this is what we're working with here. This is a Shadow Justice mid-range deck that actually revolves around us doing very, very mean things with this guy here, Tavred Auric Broker. So what does he do? Well, he does 5 damage with each of his attacks. He needs to take 7 damage in any given turn to actually die. He has Endurance, which means that I can attack with him, and then he will be ready to block on my opponent's turn, which typically is something that does not happen. And it also means he can't be stunned or exhausted by spells and effects, which is absolutely really, really neat. Here's the interesting part, though. The interesting part is that when he attacks, I look at the top 5 cards in my deck, I find a Minotaur and a weapon, I give them both +5 attack, and put them into my hand, and then the rest go into my graveyard. That makes him a really good, really, really powerful endgame engine, as he lets us draw some really, really useful tools for closing out the game, and everything is a lot more, it's got a lot more power behind it. As far as those tools we're talking about, we have a weapon that gives my units +4 attack and +1 health, in addition to lifesteal, which does what it says on the can. Whenever it does damage, I get that much back in health. Auric Runehammer is a relic weapon, and you guys will see how those work later on as we play this deck a little bit. Bloodletter here just gives my unit +3/+3, and on the turn that I play it, it gets lifelink as well, which is also awesome. Vanquisher's Blade is a really good weapon. It gives my unit +2 attack, +2 defense. I do need 2 Justice in order to play it, though, which is... it can be a little pricey. But it's useful because not only does it keep my opponent's stuff from leaving the graveyard, it also lets me cast a removal spell, Vanquish, which you can see over on the left there, if I pay an extra 3 power when I play it. It's a very, very nice card. And useful in a variety of situations, of which I probably shouldn't go over too much here. Now, what else do we have in here? Well, first thing I'm going to note is that I'm actually going to swap out this and put in one of these. I've been meaning to do that for a while and then never got around to it. Okay. Apart from that, we have a lot of decent cards that are just good, solid cards that do need to be responded to in some description. Unseen Commando is a big one, flying, so the only things that can block it are other flyers and lifelink, and then whenever a unit with 2 or more battle skills attacks, they all get +1/+1, so he's definitely a threat. Valkyrie Enforcer is just an all-around good card. Sheriff Marley is an interesting one that I've been experimenting with. She's amusing to say the least, and we'll see her in action here. And then, of particular note is Winchest Merchant. Now, merchants are a little strange, because what they do is that when you play them, you get to pick out a card in your hand, and then you get to pick out a certain card out of this little stash here called your market. So the way Win Chess Merchant works is that he lets me swap out any card in my hand for any Justice card over in my market. And as you can see, all these guys are Justice cards. So that makes things really, really simple. He allows my deck to, or he allows my hand to kind of adjust itself on the fly to whatever my opponent might be doing at any particular time, which is really, really useful. Slay, this is probably the best kill spell in the game, so of course we're running a full play set of those. And then Auric Interrogator, one of my personal favorite cards in this deck. He's pretty much just a card advantage engine, plain and simple. And and hopefully we get to do some silly stuff with him as the night progresses. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in. Again, let me know in chat if you'd like me to go over anything in particular regarding exam material. I'd be more than happy to jump off real quick and talk about everything. And as a matter of fact, I do have this fantastic thing right here, which is a mystical artifact known as a whiteboard. Got, okay, I keep forgetting my camera isn't mirrored, so I keep reaching for the right side of the board even though the marker's on the left side and I look like a complete dunce. So I apologize about that. And also high fidget. A friend drew that for me like a couple years ago when I was doing a Dust and Elysian Tale playthrough, and I didn't want to get rid of it. It's really, really neat. So yeah, I have materials. Please do not be afraid to ask me anything, because I will gladly take an intermission between games to talk about anything you guys might want me to go over for materials. Stargate Guy 77, can you cover the Wronskian? I certainly can. In fact, since we're already here and on my on my face cam, let's go ahead and get that started. All right. So first off, what is a Wronskian? So the entire idea behind a Wronskian is that it's a useful tool for determining whether two functions are linearly independent. Admiral Rez, will we need to know the Wronskian? It's good to be familiar with it, and that's probably the best thing I can say about that. It is good to be at least familiar with how Wronskians work. Will you need to compute one on the exam? I couldn't tell you. But again, it is a pretty useful thing to know how to do, and it's not that hard to compute either. So let me give you guys a quick example here. I'm going to write down a couple functions. Linear independent. What does that mean? Well, the idea is this. If I have two functions that are linearly independent, then that means that there is absolutely no way I can take scalar multiples of those functions, add them together, and then get 0 out of it. That's pretty much what that means. So let me give you an example real quick. So, got two functions here. And I'm going to move my chat window to make sure that everything is actually in frame and we can work here. Okay, so I got two functions here. We got an exponential of 2 to the x, and then we have cosine of x. Now, the idea is this. There is absolutely no way that I can scale either of these functions up by a constant and then add them together and then give me something that is 0 outright. That is literally impossible for me to do. If I had, let's say, e to the 2x and then 3e to the 2x, then yeah, those functions are linearly dependent, and that's because if I scaled this exponential up by -3 and then added them together, I'm going to get 0 all the way there. So that indicates linear dependence. These two functions, however, I could probably tell by inspection that they're going to be linearly independent, because there's absolutely no way I could take a linear combination of these guys and get them equal to 0 everywhere. Now you might not be able to see that by inspection, and that's what the Wronskian is for. So here's how that works. So to do the Wronskian, and I'm going to apologize profusely because I'm writing this upside down. Any bot burgers in the chat? I could not tell you. That said, let's actually write this down. And I'm going to apologize because I absolutely cannot write upside down and keep the board exposed at the same time. So unfortunately I'm going to take the hard way out and actually see what I'm writing. So here's how Wronskian works. It's going to be a 2 by 2 determinant, and how it works is you're going to write the functions in the first row, followed by their first derivatives in the second row. So I'll quickly write that up and show it to you guys. Alright. So, determinant. We got e to the 2x, its derivative is going to be 2e to the 2x. Then we got cosine x, and its derivative is going to be negative sine of x. How a determinant works is you take the product of these two guys, and you subtract away the product of these two guys. So what does that come out to? Let's take a look here. We're going to have e to the 2x times negative sine x, so negative e to the 2x sine x, minus 2e to the 2x times cosine x. Everything looking good so far? All I'm doing is I'm just applying the basic stuff for determinants. Now, at this point, it's probably clear that this guy is not going to be equal to 0 anywhere, and that isn't a special, and that shouldn't be coming off as especially shocking. There's absolutely no way I can combine an exponential with a trig function and expect to get 0 everywhere. That's just outrageous. So this is an example of two functions being linearly independent, because I can compute this Wronskian and show that it is not 0. As a more, guess as a more abstract example, let me try e to the, let's try e to the negative x. That sounds fun. Does the exponent get reduced by 1 on the e when it's derived? I haven't done calculus in a while, says Malpheus. That's a good question. The answer is no, not with exponentials. If I had something like x squared, then yes, the derivative of that is absolutely 2x, and that's when you decrease the power by 1. But if it's an exponential, which looks like something raised to the x, you do not apply that. And in the case of exponential, like e to the x, then because e is a log, it's because e is the base. There's a difference between x squared and 2 to the x. For one of them, the x is the base, and for the other one, x is the exponent. E is just a special number. It's like 2.718 or something along those lines. All you just need to know it's a constant. It's nothing incredibly surprising. That's all there is to it. And hopefully that cleared it up for you. Please let me know if you'd like me to go over anything in more detail. What I'm going to do right now, though, is I'm going to do another quick example of the Wronskian, and then we'll actually kick off with a little bit of games if that sounds fine with you guys. So we got an e to the 2x, and then we got an e to the negative x. I'm going to show these guys are linearly independent. How am I going to do that? Well, I compute my Wronskian, of course. So my Wronskian is going to be w is equal to a 2 determinant, and also going to look like e to the 2x, e to the negative x, 2e to the 2x, negative e to the negative x. And we start out like that, right? And I'm aware that my handwriting might not look too amazing on the webcam, but hopefully it's working out for you guys. Let me know if anything needs to be changed at all. So let's actually compute this. I'm going to... Ooh, this actually works out nicely, doesn't it? Yeah. So I'm going to take the product of this, subtract off the product of this. What do I get? I'm going to get a negative... Oh, whoops. Negative e to the negative x times e to the 2x minus 2e to the 2x times e to the negative x. We're going to have a few things cancel out here. We do end up, however, with negative e to the x minus 2e to the x, which is a fancy way of saying negative 3e to the x. And at this point, I can conclude that these guys are linearly independent. And why is that? There is absolutely no number on the face of the earth that I could possibly plug in for x such that this thing is 0 everywhere. And in fact, it's not 0 everywhere. There exists no x whatsoever that I could toss into an exponential and make it 0. So at this point, I can conclude that since this exponential e to the x is not 0 anywhere, obviously if I multiply by -3, it's still not going to be 0 everywhere. And at that point, I can conclude that these two functions have a non-zero Wronskian, and hence they're linearly independent. Precisely. Amourez has got it. This exponential here, never equal to 0. In fact, if you have any exponential anywhere, you can safely conclude that it is never, never, never equal to 0. So if you see that in a Wronskian, you're on the right track. Sounding good so far? This is great. This is fantastic. We're off to a blazing start here. I like this so far, guys. Keep the questions coming. I like asking these. Or rather, I like answering these. I should probably try that again. When we get a function where x can equal 0, then they are not linear independent. I think so. Stargate guy, that's a good question. I believe the rule is that the function has that the Wronskian has to be 0 everywhere. Let's check that real quick. We'll do one last example of this just to make sure that I got all my stuff taken care of. So what we're going to do is we're going to do e to the x, and then we're going to do x e to the x, because I know for a fact that those guys are linearly independent. So this will be a good quick example for us to try out. So this will be e to the x, this will be x e to the x. Let's compute this Wronskian. Oof. my camera work is all over the place today. But yep, here's our functions. We're gonna have e to the x. We're gonna have whoa, what in the world happened there? This is going to be x e to the x. There we go. All right, sweet. Let's actually compute this Wronskian. Now, I happen to know these guys for a fact are linearly independent because these come up if you solve, I believe it goes y double prime plus 2y prime plus y equals 0. Those are the solutions. So the Wronskian is going to be e to the x, e to the x, x e to the x. Product rule is going to be e to the x plus x e to the x. So there's the Wronskian. First column is easy. Second column is a product rule, so it's a little muddier. But let's actually compute this out. So first diagonal is going to look like I'm doing e to the x times e to the x, so this will be e to the 2x plus x e to the 2x. I believe that's how you distribute that. And then we have to subtract off x e to the 2x. And wouldn't you know it, that's equal to e to the 2x, which is not equal to 0. So as far as getting an x in your Wronskian goes, Stargate guy, I feel like that's not going to come up. If it does, then I believe that since there actually is a 0, you could make the argument that they are going to be linearly dependent. And that's going to be my diagnosis. That's going to be my diagnosis. That might be a better question to actually be asking in a lecture from someone who is who would be a bit more experienced with that sort of thing. But I would make the argument that they would definitely be linearly dependent if that was the case. If you could actually pick out an x that makes your Wronskian 0. But more often than not, as far as the functions within the scope of the questions we're going to be asking you in this particular realm are concerned, more often than not you're going to be getting a exponential, something like that, and those guys are never going to be equal to 0. If you do get an x in the Wronskian, that is definitely a good question, and unfortunately I don't have a particularly amazing answer for it, but That's a good. It's definitely a good question. I believe that they become linearly dependent if you can find an x such that they're all equal to 0, though. That makes sense? Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. That's good to hear. Like that a ton. Ah. This is good, guys. This is good. This is really good. I'm glad we're doing this. I legitimately am. So, on that note, let's take a quick break. I would love to save my changes. And let's show off some Eternal. We'll play a game or two of this just so you guys can see how this goes on. And if you guys have any other questions, make sure you drop them in the chat. I can definitely see them, and I will be sure to address them. This hand is not spectacular. That was very power light, and this one isn't especially good either. The good news is we do get to scout with these ones, and pretty much what that means is I get to look at the top card of my deck, decide if I want to keep it, and I'm going to throw that one away. We do want to dig for this third power sooner than later, so we will stop there. It's a Fire Sigil, seeking power. So he pretty much drew a Sigil out of his deck, which is pretty much a basic land. Alright, guess we're scrying again. The problem is it's a power, though. Yeah, I guess that stays on top. We kept a really slow hand, guys. Power Stone? Okay. We're kind of off the radar, guys. I'm not sure what our opponent's doing, but I will say that they are on Fire and Time, so they will have a good chunk of spot removal. So let's play the thing with Aegis on it, and then this thing with the blue swirly means that the next time they try to target it with anything, it doesn't do anything, which is excellent and exactly what we're looking for.
It's written right here.
It is written right there. Yeah, there's a Shadow Sigil. Okay, so I guess I really don't want to play Vanquisher's Blade quite yet. I want to hang on to it in case they play something really, really big. So, tell you what, let's just go attacking first. We'll get a Warcry trigger. So the next unit or weapon on my deck is going to get +1/+1 when I draw it. And they decided to trade off, so I guess we'll just play Ripknife Assassin here. He Warcry stuff on the top of my deck as well, and he's also deadly, which means any damage he does to a creature is enough to kill it. Opponent playing another, and that is a Crimson Firemaw, and this is exactly why we were hanging on to the Vanquisher's Blades. Oh shoot, we can't play it yet. Oh, that sucks. I guess we do have this, though. Yeah, this helps a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to silence it, and pretty much that means we get rid of all the effects it has on it. So as now you can see, instead of being a 5/4 with flying that does mean things when it hits us, it just turns into a vanilla creature. So we'll play that. Pass the turn. Yeah, sure.
Fire!
That was a little painful, but we're fine. So now we will remove that. It's down. And now we have an evasive 5/5 on the board, and looking pretty decent until that happened. All right, Tavra, target board banner, go. We will kill that on our next turn.
Ah, a customer.
A Rallying Merchant. So he gets a little more power. That's a 4-drop. Jeez. Alright.
Mercy isn't really my
Sheriff
strong
Marley
suit.
it is. This Carnosaur needs to go. We'll take our beats. Going to 8. Sandy.
You cannot put out the light.
Okay, we're in trouble now. So yeah, our opponent has dumped a lot of big stuff on the board, and it's not too great. We're not going to attack. They'll send from Titan. And they obliterate our base.
Fire!
Yeah, that sucked. Super unfortunate there. They played a lot of big stuff. We definitely had answers, but they just kept killing our stuff. It was very ungood. Well, what does this one do? Well, again, it's a lot of depleted lands, so... Or depleted powers, I should say. Sorry, my Magic the Gathering vernacular comes out every now and again. You guys gotta keep me honest on that. Alright, I guess we'll try it. Guess we're curving out on Unseen Commando, which is not the worst thing we could do. Opponent will scout, keep it on top. I'm gonna start with Crown Watch Standard. I'll play the tap land next turn, and maybe we'll get an idea of what the opponent's up to and get a little more information. Scry to the bottom. Alright, now we gotta play it. Lethari Falchion is actually really good on Auric Interrogator, so we will top that. Again, just post questions in the chat if you want me to talk about anything during our next intermission, probably after this game if you guys got anything for me. Otherwise, if you got any questions for me in general about what I'm playing, how my life's been, then hey, feel free to do that as well. Just want to make sure you guys are chilling and having a decent end to your weekend as we ramp up for exam number 2. Come on, opponent. They're playing a lot of
Tempered by the hottest flame.
what's this? Oh, interesting. Okay, so our opponent is on the Dragon's plan?
Trust
That's
in your
playing
skills.
Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Alright. So, Unseen Commando it is. I guess we do have the board wipe in our hand if things really go south, but hopefully we don't have to do that. Our opponent is taking his sweet, sweet time, though. So we can play a 5-drop dragon this turn if he's got a power in his hand.
The centaurs ride to war.
What in the world is this? Top unit of your deck, it's... Yeah, that doesn't look especially pleasant, does it? So can we erase that? Guess we can because we have the second Unseen Commando. So do we just start doming him for 7 now? got a lot. We got a lot of lines we can take here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the
Trust in
second
your
Untitled Chapter.
skills.
Give myself a little bit more focus. Can you do a full Laplace transform forwards through inverse with an s squared and s squared minus 4, s squared plus 4 in the denominator? Specifically, that one. Yeah, I can. Yeah, definitely. Let me take a look at that one.
One from
What
many.
in the? No, definitely. I can definitely do that. And we definitely will. I just have no idea what in the world our opponent is doing, though. We are officially off the radar. I have absolutely no clue what their plan is. But I do know we can outrace them. Because lifelink is excellent. And if they do try to do something mean, then we just wipe their board and slam Chavard. So yeah, I like where we are. They need flyers and or removal.
I will unite them.
Horse Traver is not going to do it. I'll be your Huckleberry too. Get out of here. Ugh. Fun game. I'll pick up this pack here as a reward for my wonderful, wonderful performance. Glorious. I'm going to do good question. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do that Laplace transform first, mostly because my my quest where I have to win 2 games in a row can wait. That absolutely cannot. So here is what Admiral Rez is asking me about. As soon as I find my marker, here we are. He wants me to do a Laplace transform. And specifically, he wants me to do a... Okay, so he says forwards and inverse. And to that, I'm going to say that I can only really do an inverse with that. And I say that because it's in the S domain already. So the forward transform gets you out of the T domain and into the S domain, which is where you can actually algebraically solve for big Y at S, right? And then the hard part is actually doing what you did here. So in that particular question, let me actually let me stop for a second. Let me actually write up what he had. So he wants me to do a inverse transform that looks something like this: s squared minus 4s plus 4. Okay, so that's what he wants me to do. So at this point in the problem, what you've done is you've taken the Laplace transform and you've done all the algebra to isolate big Y at S, and now you have to figure out what big Y at S is. So how do you go about doing that? You gotta keep in mind the big 4 things that we can do with Laplace transforms, and I'm going to quickly write them down. The first thing that you need to keep in mind about Laplace transforms is that you just need to learn to love your partial fractions, right? Easiest thing you can do. If you know how to do partial fractions, there's an 80% chance you're going to be doing fantastic on this exam. Second thing to learn how to do, complete the square. And completing the square only really comes up if you have an irreducible quadratic, one that you can't condense or factor out or anything like that. This particular one isn't like that, and I'll show you guys that in a second, but that's something that you do have to keep an eye out for. Third thing you can do, you can multiply by 1. And the fourth thing you can do is you can add 0. And guys, just let me know how my penmanship is going on here. I feel like I'm running a tiny bit small. Just let me know if I need to get larger or anything like that. So for this particular problem, I'm going to be doing partial fractions. And this one is going to be a little it's going to be a little intensive because what's going on is that we're going to have 4 terms. And let me show you guys why. What's another way I can write this? I can write this as 1 over s squared times s minus 2 squared. MRS, thank you, man. So, here's the expansion. So now we need to decompose this by partial fractions. Here's how this works. What I'm going to do is, well, first of all, I'm going to add a small dash around this to show that this is something different I'm working on. And here's our partial fractions work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to argue that this 1 over s squared, okay, now I'm getting small. Let's try this again. 1 over s squared times s minus 2 squared can be written as a sum of partial fractions. Now, here's the thing to keep in mind, okay? When you do, I'm gonna write down one way you can do this. You might see other books that do something kind of different, and I'll explain what I mean in a second. But here's how I do this. When I see repeated factors, what I do is I do this. I do a constant over s. So I start out with just a linear term, and then I do plus b over s squared. So then that's the term actually squared, right? And sometimes you'll write, and sometimes you'll see books do something like as plus b over s squared or something like that. This is the same thing. I just did a little bit of algebra under the table is all. And then I do the same thing for s minus 2. So this becomes c over s minus 2 plus d over, watch out fidget, s minus 2 squared. And my handwriting got a little off the walls there towards the end, but hopefully it's all good. So I'm going to turn this towards me. I'm going to multiply the entire thing by s squared times s minus 2 squared. And the end result is going to look something like as times s minus 2 squared plus b times s minus 2 squared plus cs squared times s minus 2 plus ds squared. So it looks something like that. I don't know what is up with my handwriting. It's like all over the place today. Alright, so it looks something like that, right? Alright, so now the next step is I'm going to pretty much distribute all of these terms out, and I'm going to collect them by the powers of s they have, right? So this is going to require a little bit of manipulation on my end. So first things first, this is as times s squared minus 4s plus 4. This is b times s squared minus 4s plus 4 plus, we can distribute the cs squared out, so we'll take care of that real quick. This becomes cs cubed minus 2cs squared plus ds squared. I'm gonna go ahead and distribute this s inside the parentheses here as well. So this is gonna become as cubed minus 4s squared plus 4s. So something like that. You guys with me so far? I'm aware that the algebra is a tiny bit messy, but trust me, we're getting through it. So after that, what do? We just gotta collect terms. So let's see here. I want to start by collecting all of my cube terms. I have an a and a c, right? That's cubed. Do give me a poke if you guys see anything too alarming. Then I'll do my s squareds here. I'm going to have negative 4 times a plus a b minus 2 c's plus a d. Then I'm going to collect my s's. I have 4 a's minus 4 b's. And then as far as my constants go, I just have 4 b's. All right. Whew. So with that all out of the way, with that all taken care of, we can actually start to get to work here on the actual method of undetermined coefficient stuff. So, here's where we draw the parallel, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to set up a four-way method of, a four variable system of equations, and I'm going to use these things here to guide me. For this first one, I do not see any s cubed on my left-hand side. So that means that in order for this equality to hold for my given choice of a, b, c, and d, I need to have a plus c be equal to 0. And that has to be true because there are no s cubes on the left-hand side of this equation. Sound good? Similarly, I must also have that negative 4a plus b minus 2c plus d has to be equal to 0 because there's no s squareds. I need to have 4a minus 4b be equal to 0 because there aren't any s's. But I must also have 4b equal to 1 because there is a 1 on the right-hand side of my equation, and the b's correspond to that particular constant factor. Sound good so far? Gonna get the board in here so y'all can see it. What a lovely ding that is. So you guys might actually see the hooks on my back wall there. What happened was I actually did want this board to be hanging on there, and then for whatever reason the hooks kept falling off. Like I held them up with the sort of tacky stuff, and then it just kept falling off because they didn't appreciate the wall that much. So I just kind of have it chilling out on my floor if you actually came in my apartment. So let's actually do some matrix math. No, not even that. This is just substitutions. Like we could do this right in order. I mean, check this out. Because 4b is equal to 1, I'm going to have that b is equal to 1 over 4. Because 4a minus 4b has to be equal to 0, I know that a minus b has to be equal to 0, and hence a has to be equal to b. Since a plus c is equal to 0, I know that a has to be equal to negative c. So c has to be equal to negative a, and hence c has to be equal to negative 1 over 4. And finally, for this thing down here, we're going to have to get into the meat of this one. Let's see here. Negative 4a, that's minus 1, plus a b is 1 over 4, minus 2c, we have to add in another 1 over 4. No, actually, no. I can do this, guys. I swear I'm good at math. So we have negative 4a, which gives us negative 1, plus a b, which is 1 over 4, minus 2c, and that has to be plus a half. Plus d has to be equal to 0, so we have negative 1, plus a quarter, plus a half. So this is a quarter plus d has to be equal to 0, so d has to be equal to negative 1 over 4. There we are. So those are our constants. A and b are both equal to 1/4. C and d are both equal to negative 1 over 4. So now we come back here. And now we know that our partial fraction decomposition is going to be something like this. And I'm going to go ahead and erase all this work because I'm going to need it eventually. I'm unfortunately going to need the real estate, so hopefully you guys got all that. If not, then I'm going to be posting this this VOD onto YouTube, so you guys can check that out tomorrow as soon as I get it uploaded. So then, what do we end up with? We end up with our big Y at S being equal to, and I'm just going to re-emphasize this here, big Y at S equal to and I said that A and B were both equal to 1/4. And I said that C and D were both equal to negative 1/4. Stargate Guy 77 says, can you talk about pure resonance? For example, find the value of omega in the equation y double prime plus 2y is equal to cosine omega t that displays pure resonance. I can definitely do that. So I'm going to wrap up this problem. We will play another quick game of Eternal, and then we will talk about that. Sound like a plan? We will get there. So negative 1 over 4 here, and then negative 1 over 4 over here. So here's our partial fraction decomposition so far. We have a quarter, minus a quarter, minus a quarter. Now, I'm going to have to pull up Canvas here real quick because I do need to remind myself of our table of Laplace transforms. I probably should have had this pulled up beforehand, but here we are. Here we are. All right. Okay. What are we doing? So if I wanted to do s minus 2 squared. Sorry guys, give me 1 minute here. I need to figure out. There we are. There we go. Okay, never mind. I found it. So here's what we're going to do. So this one right here is a pretty simple one. This is a number 7, I believe. So here we go. Now we're doing the inverse transform. All right. So this y at t going by number 7. This is just going to be equal to 1/4. Here's number 8, and this is just the Laplace transform for t. So this is just going to be 1/4 t. This one here is a number 12 with a equal 2. So we have negative 1 over 4 e to the 2t. Then minus. Okay, and this is the weird one. This is a number 16 with n equals 1 and a equals 2. So this is negative 1/4 t times e to the 2t. It was a bit of a wild one, but we got there. So how's that look? Does anybody got any lingering questions for me regarding this Laplace transform that I hope I'm holding in the right position? Wow, my second monitor is an absolute wreck. Here we go. Whew, that was a marathon, but I think that was a very good example. Thanks to Admiral Rez, I believe, sent that one in. Thank you very much, my good friend. Oh boy. So that was a marathon, but we got it done. Thank you. So, big problem there. So what happened was, okay, I forgot about the t. I interpreted that as a plus. Guys, that's what happens when you write your t's and your pluses similarly. Oh my, that would have been embarrassing. Yeah, good thing we got it though. Diligence. So yeah, and that actually stresses one of the big things about Laplace transforms. All you really got to do is you just got to be careful. You just have to make sure that everything is working out as far as all of your algebra and all of your expansions and your lines and everything. As long as everything works out and you take everything nice and slow, and yes, you do have the opportunity to take things nice and slow. I'm aware that during the Friday exam review, James said that this is an exam where time crunch is definitely a thing, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it is. But that happens because people stall out and they don't know what to do. So, the big thing to keep in mind about Laplace transforms, pardon me, is that this, okay? Is that this. Look to me talk. Wow. The big thing to keep in mind about Laplace transforms is that you just have to be diligent. All it really is just one giant algebra problem. That's it, that's all. And if you guys are good at doing algebra and you just make sure that you go through everything one step at a time and you can do it in a nice, crisp manner, and you make sure that you don't drop any negatives, and you make sure that you don't do anything illegal, and you make sure that you set up your partial fractions correctly and that you complete the square properly, which isn't really that hard to do in the first place, then absolutely, I have the absolute utmost confidence you guys can do this. 100%. Alright? So on that note, we toast to that. Five head, you say? Alright. And up next we're going to be playing and up next we're going to be examining something involving resonance. So I'll definitely be sure to go over that for our next commercial break, I suppose. This is good, guys. This is really good. I'm glad I can help you guys out here. The estimated wait time is a horrible, horrible liar. If a question doesn't... Finding Chris. If a question does not specify which method to use for solving a second-order ODE, would you recommend method of undetermined coefficients, Laplace, or personal preference? That is a bit of a loaded question, but I can answer that over the course of this game. This hand is complete gas. Okay. Here's how that works, okay? If a problem does not have initial conditions, use method of undetermined coefficients. If a problem has any weird functions that you cannot guess with method of undetermined coefficients, so if it has step functions, or it's a piecewise function, or it's got a delta function, then use Laplace Transform. Otherwise, stick to your guns. Use whatever method you are the most comfortable working with. And that is the best,
Send a message.
that's probably the best step through I can provide. Sounded good?
Send a message.
Or send in a message. He sent a message, and then we sent a message back. That's one of the nice things about about this game. You can get, because the units say something whenever they enter play, and you can get them to say some pretty funny things. Alright, so what's going on here? We got a Time Justice Shadow deck. This could be something like mid-range. Not really sure what's going on though. Then again, I guess you do have to keep in mind that this is Bronze 3, so everyone is just trying to get their foot in the water. Okay, they're doing Seek Power first. I'm very happy to see that. Yeah, you can do that. Does opponent have a trick? I thought about this. I thought they were thinking about doing something. Alright, so we'll get a War Cry trigger as well. Okay, so going for the pause, they almost certainly have some sort of interaction, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. And then I'm almost certain that they have a Finest Hour or something like that in their hand, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that. Opponent scries, tops it. Alright.
Ah, a customer.
Our rallying merchant. We'll probably be doing some merchanting of our own here in the very near future. Thank you for the insightful answer. Glad I could help. We're gonna be doing some merchanting here of our own, probably sometime either next turn, if not the turn after. I kind of want to kill the Aurelian merchant just to knock them down a little bit of power. So we'll see how that works. It's a very tantalizing proposition, isn't it? And I think I'm actually going to do that. Get a War Cry trigger. Alright, opponent, how you blocking? I'll take the trade. Is this game just a more advanced Hearthstone? I like to think of it as a combination between Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering. If that is a useful enough
favorite
answer.
part.
Alright, so that's an Auric Interrogator, so he's going to start drawing cards. The good news is that we have ways to shut that down. Watch this, guys. Watch this. So I'm going to... So here's how market works.
Welcome.
So, I'm now going to pick a card in my hand. I'm actually going to trade in this... I'm actually going to trade in the second merchant. I don't think I'm going to be using him anytime in the near future. I'm going to add this spell to my hand, and I'm going to use it to kill the thing that's drawing the cards. Tink. And we still have a tempo up. And he likes my style! Today's a good day. Zen and Obelisk. I would imagine that card is a little bit better if you actually have creatures on board. And we are just drawing more fluffier, so just get in for 5. And he's dead in 2 turns.
Ah, a customer.
Yick, Aurelian Merchant. So I wonder what he's digging for now. If he finds another power, he can make this a 2/6. Oh, there it is. I'm just not sure what he does with it. So yeah, we're getting in. And then, after he decides whether he's blocking or not, we're just going to slam
Think you can escape me?
Desert Marshal. That sucks a little bit. How you blocking? Oh, he's letting it through. Oh, that's fine. Alright, so Sigil,
Send a
Written Axe
message.
Assassin. And if he doesn't have it, and he's very close to just being dead. We'll just attack with the 2/2. Scry. Kill spell for sure goes on top in case of Sandstorm Titan. And I'm pretty sure he's dead. And he'll tap out. Yep, that'll do. And we got a trick shot. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So that went well for us. That went very well for us. Let's pop open these packs and we'll talk about resonance real quick. Yeah, I've been playing with this deck for a little bit. I'm very pleased with how it's going. I can't complain about it too much. Things have been pretty solid. Sandstorm Scarf is a budget card for people who cannot afford to make Sandstorm Titan. Sandstorm Titan being this, but stapled to a 5/6 endurance creature, which is absolutely terrifying. All right. So, on that note, we're going to talk about resonance. So let me quickly find this question once again. This comes from Stargate Guy 77, who wants me to talk about pure resonance, which I can certainly do. Here's the idea. As soon as I clear my board off, I should probably start doing this. I should probably start doing this after I get these talks instead of before. Probably save a tiny bit of time. No, I can even do it during the match finding screens. That sounds like decent. That sounds like decent. For some reason, I just can't talk when I'm streaming. It's very unfortunate. Either way. Alright, so we're talking about resonance. And specifically, we want to look at this particular function here. We are looking at y double prime plus 2y is equal to cosine of... actually, he used omega, so I'm going to use omega as well. Alright, so that's our differential equation. So the first thing to keep in mind is that you should only look for resonance for undamped systems. So what does that mean? Let's take a look at this. This corresponds to a mass spring system where a mass of 1 kilogram has been suspended to a spring, and a spring constant is 2 newtons per meter. And then we're going to be forcing it with some force that's modeled like cosine omega t. And we're going to figure out what the omega is that causes resonance. And what am I talking about with resonance? What could this possibly mean? Resonance simply means that we are looking for an omega such that this function here corresponds to the homogeneous solution for this particular system. What do I mean by that? Let's take a look here. If I want to solve this guy with method of undetermined coefficients, then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out what y homogeneous is, right? So how do I do that? Well, I use my characteristic equation, right? So my characteristic equation is going to look something like r squared plus 2 is going to be equal to 0. So r, I'm going to subtract the 2 over, I'm going to figure out that r squared is equal to negative 2, and that tells me that r is going to be equal to plus minus I times the square root of 2. Sounding good so far? This is just algebra. You could probably do it by yourself. Since I have these particular roots, and they are purely imaginary roots, then that tells me that I am going to have a y homogeneous that looks something like this. It's going to look something like C1. It's going to be cosine of t times the square root of 2. You can also write it as square root of 2 times t. I write it like this, so that way the multiplication is a little bit more obvious. Plus c2, and then we just do it again, but with sine. Sine t times square root 2. Okay, so the idea is this. Probably the simplest way to think about resonance is that when we go in to guess our particular solution, y sub p, we want to find that we have to introduce an extra factor of t into our particular solution. So first things first. What is our particular solution going to look like? Well, our particular solution is going to look something like a cosine omega t plus b sine omega t. I think we can agree on that, right? Okay. Now, there is one selection for omega, one very particular selection for omega that forces us to introduce a factor of t in front of both of these terms in our particular guess. And that omega is square root of 2. So, this particular solution for the system is good unless I'm going to write it in all caps and underline it a bunch here, unless omega is equal to square root 2. In that case, our y sub p looks something like a t cosine t times the square root of 2 plus b t sine times t times of t times the square root of 2. Something like that. And if you have this as your particular guess, then you are seeing resonance. There's a big thing so two big things to keep in mind here. Resonance only happens when the system is undamped and the forcing function matches your homogeneous solution for the spring mass system. Chris asked, would omega be given on the exam? If you have it, there's a lot of answers for that, and I'm not really sure which one to give you. It's possible they do not give you omega on the exam. And first of all, before you go anywhere with that, let me explain. Let me explain what I mean. What I mean by that. So, hypothetically, you could be given a system that looks something like this. Only on the right-hand side, they have cosine of square root 2 times t. Yeah, and they might ask, hey, what sort of motion is this thing exhibiting? And you might say, and you might go through this, and you might say, okay, this is undamped force motion, and also I got this particular solution for my system, so it might be displaying resonance. That's a question that could definitely be asked. Another question that might be asked is, okay, here is my spring mass system. What value of omega does this forcing function need to have such that I actually do have resonance? And in order to figure that out, you should actually go in, figure out what your Y homogeneous looks like, and then you need to pick out an omega such that the frequency of this forcing function here matches the frequency inside of these cosine and sine terms. That's how you get resonance to happen. When your forcing function is at the same frequency as the natural frequencies of the spring mass system. Did I explain that enough? I'm aware that this is one of the more shaky things as far as exam material goes, but hopefully I explained that in a decent enough way. Let me know if I haven't. He says that makes sense. Okay, fantastic. All right, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. That is exactly what I want to see. No, no. I'm not doing this again. I'm actually getting rid of my stuff. But yeah, that is the big takeaway about resonance, and that is the one thing you should be on the lookout for. If you have an undamped system, and you're forcing it, and that forcing function is a cosine or sine that has the exact same frequency as the cosine and sine of your homogeneous solution, that should immediately set off the alarm bell that your system is resonating. Similarly, if you have a system where the forcing function is at a frequency that is close to the natural frequency of your system, so the Y homogeneous, it's close but it's not equal to it, then you start seeing beats. So that's kind of the twofold thing there. If your forcing function is the exact same frequency as your Y homogeneous, then you got resonance. If it's close enough, you got beats. If it's not that close at all, then don't worry about it. Whew! Okay. Let's play a little more Eternal. We got the trick shot quest done, which is the one I was worried about, because that was the one that is probably the most grindy, I would say. Fortunately, I haven't just booted this game up in a while, so we are actually kind of on the lower tiers, so life is pretty good with that. This hand is pretty good, mostly because this is our third land, and, well, look at this curve. This curve is awesome. Alright, so we're going to do Justice Sigil. I think I actually want to play something on curve here against the guy who led on a Fire Sigil. I wonder if he has Torch up. Crown Watch Paladin is probably going to go to the top. And I think we know what to expect here. Diplomatic Seal. Okay, so this is the red-green aggro deck we're probably playing against.
Defend the throne!
And we're going to play Crown Watch Paladin here as a blocker. Sure, we'll let him have it. he does not have... That's interesting. He's missing land drops. That's very interesting. Alright, so we're going to play ours. Unfortunately, we can't play Arc Interrogator. Not that we want to. It would probably get bolted anyways. So we are going to just play another Chrono Watch Paladin. A lot of creatures with protection here. We'll see what he does. If he's stuck on 2 lands, then this is absolutely fantastic for us because we're just going to run away with the game. Oh my god, he is. Alright, this is excellent. Okay, now I want to get aggressive. So now we're going to shut down that. And now we're just going to start beating on him. And yes, I'm aware that was a big beefy kill spell. Like I said, we're getting like super greedy here.
You're not fit to rule!
I am too fit to rule. Admiral Rez says, well, we have to know the graph representation of a delta function versus a unit step function. If the question is, are you going to be expected to identify them and plot them? Not necessarily. No. You should at least be familiar with their behaviors and how they work, but you're not going to be required to actually determine. I'm not doing a really good job of explaining this, am I? You're not going to be expected to graph them. I should probably say that. You should at least be familiar with how they behave. And that's probably the best way I could say that. Needed like 2 minutes to answer that question. That was a little silly. Go to Vicaria. Okay, fine. Okay, finally, he's drawing answers. There's another sleigh. Hopefully we hit our Warcry payoff sooner than later.
Send a message.
Alright, let's just get the bolt out of his hand.
Die with honor.
Die with honor. Okay, that's a very good sleigh target. Or we can do Winchest Merchant into Vanquish. I like that a little bit better.
Welcome, welcome.
I don't think I like Valkyrie Enforcer a incredible amount here. If we need to get him back, then we could definitely do that. But we are definitely getting Vanquish. And we are definitely killing that now. And, yep, opponent folds. Sounds about right. Yeah, we got him good. Silver chest, some golds, and a uncommon. Sounds about right. That wasn't too terrible. We had a ton of answers to what they were going to do as well. So the entire idea behind the Fire Justice aggro deck, it's called Ricano. The entire idea behind that is you pretty much just get a bunch of Warcry triggers and you load up something with a bunch of weapons on it. And we just had a ton of spot removal and silences and answers to that, so our hand was not the easiest to beat. What are we doing about this one? And I guess we have our pick of turn 2 threats, so we hang on to it. And we draw a Sabotage. Against the guy who led with just a Fire Sigil, I'm starting to think that there's a torch in there. So he's going to decide whether or not he wants to let it resolve. If that's the only spell in his hand, there's absolutely no reason to throw it at our face. He doesn't cast it? I mean, okay. That was interesting. Why would you not play that? That was the only spell in your hand. You weren't doing anything else, so.
Meet my axe.
Meet my axe. Well, the correct answer to that is to lingering influence, take a scry. Argent Pork Banner should probably go on top. We might need this harsh roll. And we'll play Knight Assassin, which he cannot attack into unless he drew a torch at any point over the past 2 turns. There's a Fire Sigil. Yeah, he drew one. So that sucks a bit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Winchester Merchant, cash in Brownwatch Paladin for a Argent Port Banner. So, and the reason I'm doing that because now I have guaranteed 5 power open in case I need to wipe the board. For reasons like this. So yeah, that can bounce right off. That is interesting, though. I'm not sure I quite see the synergy here, but whatever.
Halt!
We'll silence it. Sure.
Meet my axe!
And we'll see just how much our opponent goes off here. Don't think I wholly agree with that particular attack with the Minotaur Grunt. Maybe he really wanted that extra war cry. We'll just make a 5/5 and say he can attack into that if he wants to.
I've got my eye on.
Probably a lift. It's a bit of a pain. We're not really drawing that well, are we?
Draw, mister!
Alright, now I think we can pretty safely wipe the board. No, it says of our door. I cannot speak today. I have no idea why. Just up to our opponent to decide what he's attacking with. Do a transform of a unit step function. Okay, okay. So it would probably be a little bit easier for me if, well, first of all, I was actually drawing useful cards, but also if I actually set up a piecewise function and then gave you guys the walkthrough for that. So I'm actually going to harsh roll before he gets any more cry triggers.
This ends now!
But yeah, I'll set something up to make that happen. Have fun attacking into my 4/3 opponent.
Favorite part.
Though that thing does have quick draw, so if he draws something useful, then
Draw, mister!
might be in for a bit of a rough ride. Oh hey, Slay, that's a good one. We win this race. If he wants to double block, then he's free to. Alright. like, this is a race we win, and then we have slave for whatever their threat is, so...
I've got my eye on.
That's a little bit. So that we kill that. Get in. And then
Trust
unsync
in your
commando pass.
skills.
He needs to kill both of these guys if he wants to live. And that's not going to do it. Ding. Hades. All right. Pretty straightforward one. Pretty straightforward one against the red-green Warcry deck again. And we'll come back over here. Let's talk about unit step functions. So unit step functions typically come up as a consequence of piecewise functions, because remember that given any piecewise function, we can do it as a series of unit step functions. So let's wrap a quick example here. Say my y or yt is typically used for something else. We're going to call this one f of t, and let's set that equal to the following. It'll be 3 parts. We're going to have it equal to cosine of t going from 0 less than or equal to t less than 1. We'll have this equal to 4 for 1 less than or equal to t less than 3. And we're going to have this equal to, let's say, t squared plus 1 for all t greater than 3. How's that? All right. So the first thing we're going to do is that when you're given a piecewise function like this and you're asked to do something involving Laplace with it, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to decompose this down into a series of step functions. And how we're going to do that? Well, the thing to keep in mind about step functions is that once you turn it on, you can't turn it off, right? So the first thing you start out with, the first thing you do is you just go piece by piece. and I'm aware that's a very redundant thing to say about piecewise functions, but that's how we're going to tackle this. So here's how this works. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start out with the first thing we do is that we look at our time equals 0. And of course we see that this looks a lot like a 4, so I'm going to clean that up a bit. There we are. And the first thing we're going to notice is that we start out at cosine t. So we're going to do the same here. At first we have a cosine t. Then something happens at t equals 1. So what's going to happen is at time equals 1, this function stops doing cosine and it starts doing this constant 4, right? So what we're going to do now is we are going to shut off this cosine and we're going to turn on this 4. And we can do that with a step function. So what we do is we do u at t minus and then whatever the break is at. So this one happens to be at 1. So u at t minus 1. And then we're going to multiply that by whatever function we're turning on at that time minus whatever we're turning off at that time. So what do I mean by that? Well, we want this guy to start doing 4, right? So hopefully this becomes 4. But if I just left it like this, then at time equals 1, I get cosine t plus 4. And obviously that's not what we want. We want just 4. So what I have to do is I have to subtract off this cosine of t. So the way I'm supposed to do this is 4 minus cosine t. A lot like that. Sound good so far? And then, for this next step function at t minus 3, I add in my t squared plus 1, and I subtract off my 4. Or, if I wanted to combine these guys, I can just do t squared minus 3. And I can definitely clean up these braces a little bit more. Here we are. So that's one way to write this piecewise function, and you should definitely do this for every piecewise function you see on the exam, because there's a 90% chance we're going to make you do something like something with Laplace transforms with it. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to set this up as a series of step functions. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take the Laplace transform of this. So here's how this works. Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the Laplace transform of cosine of t. And cosine of t is a pretty straightforward one. This is a number 13 with k is equal to 1. So this starts out as s over s squared plus 1. Good so far, right? And now we have to worry about this guy here. Now, whenever you see a step function and you need to take the Laplace transform of it, you should always, 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 always use the alternate form of number 5 on the Laplace transform sheet. So we're going to use number 5 alt here. Let's identify our stuff. Our a here is going to be this is going to be this constant right here. That's t minus a. So our a for this one is going to be 1. I just realized something, guys. This doesn't quite work out because I don't know what the Laplace transform of cosine of t what the Laplace transform of cosine of t plus 1 is. Yeah, whoops. So here's what we're going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have this go from I'm gonna change the breaks from 1 to 3 to pi and 4. And hopefully that makes things a little less awkward. I'm sorry about this. I was not expecting this to happen. Pi, and then this is 4. Okay. All right. I'm really sorry about that, guys. So now our a, so now our a is pi, and the reason I'm going with that is because we I done goofed a little bit, and I wasn't sure how to do the Laplace transform of cosine of t plus 1. However, we can do the Laplace transform of cosine t plus pi. And so real quick, what in the world are you talking about, Jared? All this cosine of t plus pi and all that fun stuff? Well, once we've identified our a, we need to identify the g of t, and the g of t is just going to be whatever this step function is multiplying, right? So in this particular case, our g of t is going to be 4 minus cosine t. Looking good? Going to pull up OBS so I can make sure y'all are actually getting a good look at the board here. Yeah, for sure. So then g of t plus a is what we need to take the Laplace transform of, right? And that's going to be equal to 4 minus cosine of t plus pi. And why did I do t plus pi? This is a trig thing that I absolutely do not expect you guys to know offhand, and it probably won't come up on the exam either. But the cosine of t plus pi is actually equal to the negative cosine of whatever t is. So this is actually 4 plus cosine t. All right. So now we need to take the Laplace transform of this guy here, and well, that's that's pretty straightforward. So then the Laplace transform of g of t plus a is going to be, let's see here, it would be 4 over s plus s over s squared plus 1. And so then we can add on to our f at s expansion here. So this is going to be e to the negative as, so this would be negative pi s, times 4 over s plus s over s squared plus 1. And then we could do it again for u at t minus 4, so I'm going to erase this and just repurpose it. So here our a is 4, our g of t is going to be t squared minus 3. Our g of t plus a is t plus 4 squared minus 3, which is going to be t squared plus 8t plus 16 comes out of this, minus 3, so plus 13. And then the Laplace transform of that is going to be, it would be 2 over s cubed plus 8 over s squared plus 13 over s. So then we come back over here into f of s, we multiply it by e to the negative 4s since our break was at f, or since our break was at t minus 4, and then we multiply it by this thing here, which is 2 over s cubed plus 8 over s squared plus 13 over s, and that is the Laplace transform of this piecewise function. It was a little bit clumsy. I do apologize because I completely forgot that we were going to have a cosine of t minus something, and I did not take that into account when I was setting up this piecewise function. I completely did this off the top of my head. Lean back this way, Jared. So I appreciate you guys putting up with that. I made an adjustment so that this actually does make sense, and hopefully we all got there in one piece. I totally forgot that that was going to happen. How are we? So, Admiral, I definitely hope that helped you out. Okay, fantastic. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Rockin' in a million and one ways. I'm not even in your class. I just want to say you're a good tutor. Jive Turkey 48, much appreciated, my dude. Thank you all for coming by and checking out the stream. I really do appreciate it, and this is a really fun thing I like doing for you guys. So, thanks a ton. And with that out of the way, let's get back to work. We're playing green. We're playing you know, it happened again. My inner magic came out. We're playing Justice Shadow mid-range. Okay, there we go. Not green black mid-range. That's absolutely not it. No, those are some fancy card backs. Best IFAQ review ever. I wish I had this when I took it. Well, you know what, Jive Turkey? I appreciate the compliment, my man. That really does mean a lot. It tells me I'm doing my job correctly. So I appreciate you being here, and I sure hope you enjoy the show. This hand is not a bad keep. I'll keep it in the dark. Diplomatic seal into Initiative of the Sands. Okay, so our opponent's going to be able to plop a is going to be able to accelerate something. So I guess we are scrying for a kill spell. That's not a kill spell, and I really want to get to 4 mana so that way I can play Auric Runehammer. So we're just going to bottom that. Tombre Banner, yep, so this is...
You're a sad bunch.
Is variation of parameters on the exam? No. I'm just going to answer that right now. No. Absolutely not. Okay. So what do we need? So what do we want to do about that?
Send a message.
We play a 2-drop and hope he can't get rid of it. He's in Time Justice, so I'm pretty sure he can't. Pog! Yes, Pogs indeed. I was born in 1994, but I totally missed the whole Pog craze while that was going on. Pog craze was a thing, right? I have no idea. No attacks. That is absolutely fantastic. So we are going to Windmill Slam this Valkyrie Enforcer. We are going to shut that up so we don't get taxed. Unless they have like Protect or something? Okay, no. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Okay, so I guess the advantage bar is slightly in our favor at this point. We definitely kept a really slow hand, and we're lucky that we managed to silence that before anything bad happened. We'll take our beats. Opponent gonna buff it?
Take this!
Or thinking about it.
Time quickens.
Another initiate at the sands. Okay, so I think we need to runehammer one of them. I mean, it always feels like really, really bad when you're when you're runehammering a 1/1. The problem is those 1/1s are ramping him, and I really don't like that. Can we go over how to describe the motion of a mass spring system during your next break? I absolutely can. Emerald Red says, thanks for the help. Looking forward to the review class tomorrow in class as well. I love the Switch idea. One perk of being in college in 2018. Emerald Rez, I am glad that I could be of assistance, my man. You have yourself a good night if you're clocking out. Motion of mass spring systems, absolutely. That will be next in the docket. That sounds like an excellent plan. In the meantime, I need to figure out what the hell I'm doing here. Again, this feels really awful, but the fact that he's ramping and he's going to get out of control and I don't have any spot removal in my hand, that is absolutely not good, so we need to fix that. And we'll just leave up blockers. We're in absolutely no rush to kill him. Yeah, and so far this is all really, really good stuff. Stand together. Was that what his spell was? Interesting. So he let it go then. Super, super weird. Alright, well those are our blocks. Yeah, finest hour is fine.
Take this!
Take this! It always sounds like she stubs her foot on something. It's wonderful.
Faith makes us strong.
What the hell is this? Oh, that's a mean one. Now look at that. That is super mean. I like it. Alright, so we'll kill it. And then I guess we play the you know what? Commando comes first. I want if he comes off the field for whatever reason, I want to make sure I can actually get a Sheriff Marley silence. I typically don't like plugging myself, by the way, guys. But I do plan on doing this. Considering this turns out to be going, you know what, pretty well. I'm definitely thinking about doing this for the final as well. So if you guys aren't sure what's gonna be going down for that, then I would definitely recommend you guys hit the follow button in case you in case you missed the train on my announcement or anything like that. And yeah, that was my very, very horrible, clumsy attempt to actually try plugging myself. That was very meh, to say the least. But yeah, that was pretty much my spiel. A very, very clunky spiel, but a spiel nevertheless. All right, we have two Sheriff Marleys in hand. Let's slam one. Sell out. Yes, I'm aware.
Mercy isn't really my strong suit.
Mercy is not really her strong suit. Holy hell. It's a Marley versus Marley. Yeah, we'll swing with the team.
Air that can reach nearly 400 degrees. It likes to snack on twigs.
That by the way is the GIF I have for following it. I absolutely love it. If you haven't picked up on it yet, I kind of do enjoy foxes. They're so cute.
Mercy isn't really my strong suit.
All right. So we now have 3 copies of Sheriff Marley on the field. So this is probably induced some sort of horrible space-time continuum thing. Who in the world is Sheriff Marley? Who's the real one? The world may never know. What I do know is that we have a significant tempo advantage. So in we go. Getting in for 11 here.
Air that can reach nearly 400 degrees. It likes to snack on twigs.
Gesundheit fighting, Chris. Thank you for the follow, my man. Alright. So we will make a steadfast deputy
Peace is its own reward.
as a jump blocker, and we'll leave it there. Opponent can get in if he wants to.
Peace is its own reward.
Peace is its own reward. You want to know what else is its own reward? An evasive 3/4 with lifelink. Opponent is going to have a really tough time answering that. Alright, so we'll play that. And do we just a space here? You know what, sure. And he didn't block correctly. So we'll kill him. That's fantastic. Was that one game or two, guys? I kind of wasn't paying attention. But hey, we got promoted. I feel like it was 2. Where's the 1? Okay, no. Okay, you know what? Screw it. Let's talk about mass spring motion. Jive Turkey Jive says he's pretty sure it's only 1. We'll do 3 for our next segment for sure. We'll make up for it. All right. So let's talk about mass spring motion. So the entire idea is this. The nice thing about mass spring systems is that you can model them with second order ODEs, which, fun fact, is what you're being tested on tomorrow. It's really good stuff. So that means that we can kind of classify what's going to be going on with them for any given mass spring problem. So let's keep in mind what's going on with the mass spring problem. We're going to have some sort of mass, which I'm going to denote with M here in a very, very quick minute. And it will be attached to some spring with a spring constant K. And attached to it is going to be some sort of dash pot. And if you guys don't know what that is, it's pretty much just a thing that damps mass spring oscillations. So the way you can model that is with my double prime plus by prime plus ky is equal to f of t. And this f of t is going to be it's going to be some sort of forcing function. The analogy I like to use in my class is that this left-hand side here is pretty much just the spring oscillating and bouncing up and down and doing its own thing, and then this f of t is a cat running into the room and messing up with the spring mass system somehow. So this is the so this is the spring doing everything without assistance, and this is the assistance it's getting. As far as motion is concerned, well, we want to try and figure out how this mass spring system is going to behave without necessarily solving for y at any point. So here's how we do that. What's the characteristic equation for this? Well, first things first. F of t is not going to impact how damped this system is, for sure. It's absolutely not. So the only thing we are interested in looking at is the solution to the homogeneous equation, which is, as you guys might recall, my double prime plus by prime plus ky is equal to 0. So this is the primary equation we're going to look at to determine whether or not to determine how damped a mass spring system is. So how do we solve this? Well, we just use the characteristic equation. And that looks like mr squared plus br plus k is equal to 0. And we can solve for r by just using the quadratic formula. This looks like negative b plus minus b squared minus 4mk, take the square root of that, all over 2m. All right, looking good so far? How to determine how damped a system is given by this quantity here under the square root. This is the discriminant, right? And all we got to do is we got to look at the sign on this. There's four different things that can happen. So 4 things. The first thing that can happen. This is the this is the very simple case. Like, oh, Jared, you don't say if this is true, then well, this trivially has to be true. And yeah, but again, this is the sake of thoroughness. So I'm just gonna write this down to make sure that all my bases are covered. If b is equal to 0, well, that corresponds to no damping force, right? So unsurprisingly, this is called undamped motion, right? Like, that just follows by definition. That surprises absolutely nobody. It's definitely undamped because, well, there's no damping. How shocking, Jared. The next thing to keep in mind is if we have, I'm going to call this quantity inside the square root here d. If d is less than 0, what happens? Well, if d is less than 0, then we're taking the square root of a negative number, and that is going to give us imaginary or complex roots for r, right? And if that happens, then that's going to correspond to cosines and sines, and then they're going to be multiplied by some sort of decaying exponential. That's always going to happen because m, b, and k are guaranteed to be positive, for sure. Yes, thank you, MTGBot. Because of that, we're going to be getting decaying, oscillating exponentials. So the way I like to think about it is that there's definitely damping going on, but the damping is not strong enough to completely cancel out the oscillations in the system. Is it making sense? So if that's the case, then it's damping, but it's not damping enough to kill those oscillations. So we like to call that underdamped motion. All right? If d is greater than 0, then that means that this quantity here is going to be greater than 0. The roots for r are going to be real and distinct. So there's going to be two different r's that satisfy this characteristic equation here. And what's going to happen is I'm going to be getting two decaying exponentials. There's going to be no oscillations. And what's going to happen is if I have a graph here of time and my solution, what's going to happen is it's going to start and then it's just going to immediately die down because it's just the sum of decaying exponentials, right? So this thing is absolutely not oscillating in any way whatsoever. And in this case, the damping is doing a really, really good job at killing the oscillations. In fact, it's doing such a good job that I'm going to call this guy overdamped. And that's how we describe the motion for that. The last case to consider is if we have a 0 discriminant. And you can probably figure this out through method of elimination that this is going to be critically damped. But let me actually write up what a solution of that might look like. So first things first, if the discriminant is equal to 0, then we are going to have a repeated root in r. So it might be like 2 and 2, or -3 and -3. Either way, r is going to have a repeated solution, a repeated real solution. That's probably important to keep in mind. So if r has a repeated real solution, then that means there's going to be a decaying exponential, and then there's going to be another decaying exponential, which is that same exponential, but with a t in front of it. And if that happens, then the oscillations are going to die out a lot quicker than they do with the overdamped case. So maybe the solution looks something a bit more like that. And then depending on your initial conditions, maybe you get a really small oscillation, maybe something like this, but either way, the motion dies out very, very quickly. A lot more so than with overdamped motion, I'll tell you that. So that's pretty much it. If your motion is undamped, then your roots for r are purely imaginary. You're going to get sines and cosines forever and ever and ever, and the mass spring system is going to oscillate forever and ever and ever. If you have d is less than 0, that's underdamped motion, where the mass spring system is oscillating, but the oscillations are slowing, dying out, and eventually are going to flatline to 0. If you have d greater than 0, you have overdamped motion, where you're not going to have any oscillations in any way whatsoever, and the mass spring system is going to slowly rise to 0, and it's going to stop. And then this right here is a typical idea of critically damped motion, where the mass spring system is going to decay to 0 very, very quickly compared to overdamped motion. Is all making sense? Finding Chris tells me I'm the man. I sure hope so, man. I'm glad I'm being helpful. And let me know if I need to bring this back up. I'm going to leave this on the board in case you guys want to take another look at it and talk about it some more. But in the meantime, let's play some more games. We're gonna sit up, and we got 3 to play here. We just got promoted, boys. We're in Bronze 2. Yay! The second worst league. What, Jared? Why are you playing a game you're bad at? Guys, I'm going to be honest with you guys, okay? I suck at games. I am absolutely horrible at them. But I play them regardless because I know that I want to get better. And that's a good moral to keep in mind with anything. The only way you're not going to suck at something is if you just try it. You just try it, you learn from your mistakes, and you just learn not to make those mistakes. Plain and simple. I don't think LSV or Reed Duke immediately sat down with a magic deck. Bless you, Jive Turkey. Thank you. They didn't sit down immediately with a magic deck and immediately started going to Grand Prix and all this other fun stuff. Of course not. Everything takes practice, plain and simple. And it's up to you guys to actually sit down and put the time and effort into honing your skills and getting better at the things you want to be good at. That's all it is.
Die with honor.
One of the worlds going on here, we are about to kill our opponent's turn 1 play and ramp ourselves. So that's pretty good. Thank you very much for the follow, Jive Turkey.
Die with honor.
Opponent is on opponent is on the 2-1 tribal planet, it appears. I really wish I could play this Unseen Commando, but I guess we are gonna have to settle with a actually, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna play this Winchest Merchant. We're gonna trade in this Cabal Standard for a land that actually gives me Justice Influence, so that way I can actually start playing my stuff. So we'll give that a bash. We'll take our beats. 22. Interesting. Very interesting. I do not agree with this particular interesting because it just seems a little meh. So now what's the plan? I really do want to put this Unseen Commando into play at some point, but the problem is that this is a 5/5 and we can definitely put our opponent down cards. Well, I guess we're going to open with a Duress. Ooh, Annihilate is really good. I kind of don't want that 5/5 around at the moment, so yeah, we'll kill it. And I guess we'll just stop the quest. Pyro Knight cannot get through Tavern by itself. Sharpen those horns.
Draw, mister.
Kano Outlaw, that is perfectly fine. Get in with Tavern. We draw an Auric Interrogator, which is fantastic. And we draw a Vanquisher's Blade, which is actually even more fantastic. Because of this. That was a really good turn. Oh no, Death Strike. That was regrettable. Oh well. Yeah, we'll top that. Interrogator, Crown Watch Paladin, go.
My favorite.
Defend the throne.
opponent draws a power, that kind of sucks. Yeah, yeah, we'll trade. Not especially happy about that. I'd rather be drawing cards, but that was a really big stompy thing, and it kind of had to go. Commando attack, right?
Trust in your skill. Trust in your skills.
Trust in your skills. That sabotage will whiff. And our opponent scoops it up. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Everything is excellent. What's this one? That is, that's a very overcosted equipment. Yeah, no, if I have one equipment with that effect is, for 7 is absolutely not worth it. Okay. This hand needs to go back for sure. And this one is not that much better. Yeah, I think our winning streak is done, guys. This hand is not great. Much as I hate to say it. Starts with the crest of cunning. Interesting. No, we're not drawing lands. This might be the end of us.
This city will burn.
Well, that didn't really help. Yeah, our hand is incredibly bad. Yeah. That's the turn. We can't play anything. Jeez, and that's
Just a promise.
and that's pretty much everything. I actually do need to put Shakedown in here. Shakedown's a really good card. It's pretty much the same position as Kozilek. Yeah, opponent just pounded on us. There wasn't a ton we could do. I'm gonna take a look at the opponent's hand, and we'll just scoop it here. Torch our face. Yeah, you bet. Yes. That was a very ungood hand. That was like just appallingly bad. I'm gonna tune this deck up. This deck definitely needs to be playing Shakedown. So pretty much all I'm doing is I just want to put in a little bit more interaction. I think that's pretty safe. I'm gonna trim a Vara's favor. I'll trim probably a what do I get rid of here? Guess we'll try it like that. All right, we'll see. All right, we'll see how that goes. doing a little bit of tune-up. Unless I mostly are calling it a night. All right. I think what I'll do is I'll open things up for last-minute questions, and if I don't get anything, I'll just play a few more hands here, and we'll call it good for the night. Very powerful early hand. Going against Jiggles. Good. I like it already. Good day, citizen. Wowzers. What you got over there?
Threat. Just a promise.
The charging, the whirling duo can go. Evan Whale says, thanks for the help tonight. You know what, man? I'm glad I could be of assistance. Like I sincerely am. I wish you the best. I wish you the best of luck. I'll be seeing you tomorrow, and all that fun stuff, brother. I'm glad I could help out. You have a good rest of the night. The shadow sigil is going to be needed if I find that. So he like snap got rid of the sleigh. Can't say I blame him. He flipped a bunch of powers if I had to guess.
Trust in your skills.
So what do I know is in his hand? I know that that's there.
Count.
And yeah.
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome, welcome. What do I want to take here? Runehammer sounds about right for this particular deck. We'll just go high. Don't want to play too much in case we in case there's a board wiper.
Now it's my turn.
I guess that's fine. Alright. Runehammer. Punch ya. Pretty solid turn there. Opponent has a Runehammer as well. Going after Merchant. Sure. That makes sense. We're gonna do that though.
Defend the throne!
Throne! And what else do you have for me? He's got a sleigh. Which sucks. That's decent.
Touch of shadow.
Third deck of it. We are yet to hit the thing we've been war crying for.
It'll get the job done, guaranteed.
I'll get the job done. Wonder what he's getting. It's the red merchant. I legit have no... Yeah, no, I legit have no idea what he could be getting.
Trust in your skills.
So trust in our skills a bit more. This comes in 3-2, which is absolutely fantastic. This draw is actually pretty good. Nah, I don't bother.
You'll stay forever.
Make each bullet count.
Harsh roll. Yeah, sure. That's fine. Draw another sleigh. So what's our opponent's threat? Oh. I mean, here's a threat. We just whack him for 5. That works. George has to go to our face, for sure. Play that. I play that instead of this, so that way I don't signal that there's another useless card in my hand. Here's why we have the finest hour.
You were no match for me.
Yeah.
Threat. Just a promise.
Get rid of the spot removal. And inside there is a Colda deck and a Crudgel.
You were no match for me.
Holy shit. That's amazing. Yeah, he's gonna put it on there for sure. That's... yeah, no, this is awful.
Send a message.
I'll let him attack me. So we're just banking on him not having stuff.
Now it's my turn.
Yeah, you may definitely have that. Because here's what's gonna happen. That was a good game. We very nearly lost to Kindness Tribal. That would have been incredibly bad. We drew out of it though. That was by the skin of our teeth, but we got out of it. Let's do one more hand and then I think I'll wrap it up for the night. How does this hand look? That can be thrown back for sure. And I think we're just going to do Arc Import Banner Go. Good stuff. Nothing too exciting here, at least not yet. Annihilate. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to play Winchester Merchant.
Welcome.
Cash in. gonna cash in this Rib Knife Assassin. I'm gonna get a Argent Port Banner. Just to get my second green ready for Valkyrie Enforcer. Opponent is Driven. Pin's a Statuary Maiden. What in the world was... So now I'm super curious as to what the other thing could have possibly been. Alright, so I guess we're going to play Sheriff Marley.
Really my strong suit.
Mercy isn't really my strong suit. Opponent's on some sort of Jund deck.
Now it's my turn.
Make sure he can have it.
No threat, just a promise.
We'll get rid of the Merchant. The other one is a Cold deck. Silence. Opponent is game tripping some more. Plans to attack with bar. What I think we do is we play Windchest Merchant.
Welcome.
Trading Crown Watch Paladin for Vanquish. Killer. Let's bring the team. And they are dead on board. That'll do it. Tavrid is...
Sharpen those horns.
Well, that's one way to get back in the game. Provided they don't have spot removal. So they're probably going to coal... They're probably coaling for that.
You buying or not?
Trust in your skills.
Trust in our skills. Let's just see what our opponent does. I don't want to fire off anything yet. What you got, opponent? Just the 2-1? Sure. Another harsh roll.
This ends now.
Yeah. On the brighter side, on the brighter side, we're not down nearly as many cards.
You stay for
Trust in your skills.
Yeah, sure. Opponent misplayed. Not it matters too much. They're just pegging me with the 2 point, which is interesting. Alright, so 6, 8. Yeah, our hand is we've been drawing blanks. And then Crown Watch Paladin just doesn't do it. Yeah, that sucks. We have plenty of draw steps to get out of that. No. It was a good game. We just didn't draw right. It sucks, but it happens. One last one. We're going out on a high note, guys. double discard spell. But then two Nightfalls. This hand doesn't feel right to keep on for a number of reasons, but you know what? It's gonna be fun. So. Scries first, and after seeing the blue-black one, I am very tempted to Inquisition them, and we will.
Threat. Just a promise.
What in the world's happening here? Okay, is it just me, or does Fenris look like she's like holding only like a teacup in her hand or something like that? Yeah, we're gonna start there. Opponent has a Seek Power, a Shakedown, and a Merchant.
Just a promise.
Shakedown is a really, really nice card. They take our Shakedown. Fair enough. You know what? You want to know why they did that? Because now they get a. Or is that right? I'm not really sure. What I do know is that we are going to be in a decent amount of trouble if we don't find our next green source. So as much as I would love to play play Certain Night Assassin and just present something, wait a minute, they're in these colors. That's interesting. Yeah, you know what? I think this line is still correct. We can take our time here. Thari Falchion needs to go to the bottom. Argent Board Banner was exactly the card we wanted to see there. It's better they annihilate this as opposed to a commando, so we'll work with that.
Something catch your eye.
Alright, so they got something.
Trust in your skills.
This makes decent sense. Yeah, we'll do it. Was a little painful, but not the worst thing by any means. walk. Opponent must have something really good then.
Little brothers, let us feast!
Tavern.
Sharpen those horns!
Pass the turn.
Something catch your eye.
Yeah, we're really appreciating this. Interesting. Well, you drew a card, opponent. Well, I made my move. I mean, you asked for it, so. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, don't taunt players until the game is well and truly over. That's the moral of the story here. Because otherwise you get thrown out like that. Ooh, double promotion? Can this be a platinum? No. I can always dream. All right, one pack opening. What is this one? Is a memory dredger. Most intriguing. But I think that will do it for the day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I think this was pretty productive. Yeah, I think this worked out really well. I'm glad we did this. I am very glad I could have been of assistance to you guys, and I sure hope you all have a absolutely fantastic remainder of your evening, because I know that this was something I really wanted to try out for a while, and you know what? I think it turned out all right. So I appreciate you guys coming by, and I appreciate you guys just willing to test something out. So thanks again. I think this was a really smashing success. Have a fantastic remainder of your Sunday evening. If you're taking the DiffyQ exam on Monday, then I wish you the best of luck. And I'll be seeing you guys hopefully on the next stream. Not sure when that'll be, but you know what? Wish you the best of luck in whatever you're doing anyway. So take care of yourselves, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Good night.